Hello, fifth grade Cougars. It's Mrs. Belatash here with you, and we are going to talk about science and engineering. I'm going to be teaching you science and engineering this year. We're going to start with engineering, which is going to be a great way to start off the year. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about the supplies you got and how we're going to manage our science notebook. Okay? So let's get started on that. Okay, so you got some supplies and you got a notebook. So you should have gotten a bag kind of like this. It might have a different color on it. And we're just going to take out one thing from that bag of supplies today. So I'm going to open it up and I see there is a pile of index cards. Yours might have a rubber band around it. So we're only going to take this out for today. We're also going to need some tape. So just a little bit of tape, not very much. You don't have to use tape, you can. So we're gonna need a little bit of tape and the index cards for today. I'm gonna put the rest of the bag to the side. And now I'm gonna take out my science notebook. You might have a notebook like this. You might have a spiral notebook. It's fine, however it is. And you're gonna put your name. I put Mrs. Belatash. Obviously put your own name, don't put mine. I put fifth grade, because this is the fifth grade class, and I put CCC for Carpenter Community Charter. So everybody make sure that you have your name on your notebook. And then we're going to open up the front cover and we're going to write a table of contents at the top, okay? Because our science notebook, we're going to have a table of contents so we know all the different things that we're going to be learning about, okay? And the very first one, I put a number 1, and the very first entry into our table of contents is going to be technology and engineering. So take a minute and write technology and engineering, and then I'm going to put a number there, number 1, because that's going to be our first entry into our science notebook, okay? Technology and engineering, number 1. So take a few minutes to make sure that you've got your name and everything on your science notebook and the table of contents and technology and engineering. Okay? And then what I want you to do, you're going to then skip a few pages. So we're not writing on the front, we're not writing on the back, we're not writing on that next page. We're going to skip all the way, we're not on the back. We're gonna go over here and I put a number 1. This is gonna be the first page of our science notebook, and we're going to put the date. Today, for me, it's August 24th. You are guys gonna put the date that you're doing your notebook. So I'm gonna put August 24th, 2020, and the title is Technology and Engineering. That's the title of my page for the day, Technology and Engineering. Please do this with me as I am working. So I've got the date and the title, okay? The date and the title, and I have the page number at the bottom, okay? So make sure that you've got that all ready to go. And now let's get started with technology and engineering. Okay, so we're gonna talk about technology and engineering. And my first question is, what is technology? So I'm gonna ask you to pause my video and talk amongst yourselves. What do you think technology is? Okay, we're back now. And let's talk about what is technology. Technology. Technology is a tool, a system, or a process. A tool, a system, or a process. So I've got an example of some technology here. A spoon, just a simple little spoon, right? And like, this is a tool. So I could use it for eating my breakfast cereal or eating some soup. I could also use it to dig in the soil and plant some seeds. I could use it to, as a lever. I could use it to flip something, to shoot something. I could use it to like pry something open. So while we call this a spoon and it's, used for eating, it's also could be used for many different things. So this is a tool. A tool is just one thing, one part. Now, a system. This is a pencil. This pencil is actually a system because it consists of the wood. It consists of the actual graphite, which is what we write with, the eraser on the end, and this little piece of metal. So all of those components work together in a system in order for us to be able to write. So we've got a tool, which is a spoon or a knife or a fork, a system, which is a couple of different components put together. And then we have a process. Now, a process is kind of like the directions. So I have a Vex Robotics team, and this is the directions for building a particular thing. And the directions can either be with pictures or they can be with words, but the directions are a process. Like a recipe is also a process. So, technology, it can be a tool, system, or a process. So technology is actually made and designed by engineers, okay? So an engineer is a person who designs technology. Let's write these two things in your notebook. So you write in the notebook that technology is a tool, system, or process, and then we're going to write about engineers. Engineers design technology. And the technology that engineers design solve human problems. So engineers are really problem solvers. They solve human problems. Like, I really needed something that would write on this board. So an engineer designed a whiteboard marker. I really wanted to be able to sit down. So an engineer designed a chair. Engineers, industrial designers, these are people who solve problems. So now I'm going to give you an engineering problem that I want you to solve. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a problem to solve. I want to build a little tower that will be able to hold a piece of fruit. I have a pear, but you could also put a banana on it if you'd like, or an apple or a peach, but something about this size. And I want you to be able to build a tower to hold it up, so it's not just sitting on the table or sitting on the floor. Okay, but the only thing that you're allowed to use are these index cards and a small amount of tape. Not a lot of tape, a small amount of tape. So we have to kind of think about how we're going to do this, right? We just don't start building. Engineers do some planning. And we're going to get out our notebook and we're going to talk about how we do that. Okay, so let's go back to our notebook. Again, have our name on the front. We have the table of contents, technology and engineering. I'm going to go to the first page and I have the date. The title is Technology and Engineering. And then I wrote technology is a tool, a system, or a process. And I said a tool is a spoon or like a fork. A system is a pencil, wood. It consists of the wood, the lead or the graphite, the eraser, and the metal. And the process is like a recipe or directions. And I also wrote that engineers design technology to solve a human problem. So make sure that you write those things in your science notebook. Okay, I'm going to turn the page, and now I'm going to give you the problem, right? I gave you the problem that I need to have a stand for my fruit. So there are some limits though, and those limits, we call them constraints. And the constraints or the limits are that I don't get to use unlimited cards, right? I can only use about 50 cards. I only get to use a small amount of tape. My stand must be at least 12 inches tall, and it must be able to hold my banana on top. Now, I think I'm gonna go with the banana because it won't roll off. If you have a banana, I would suggest that. You could use a small stuffed animal if you would like, but a banana is pretty useful. Okay, so now I have these index cards, and you know, this is a thing made out of paper. Paper is pretty flexible, not very strong. And I need them to go up 12 inches. So this is about 12 inches high, so it's not high enough. And I gotta start thinking about some ways that I could change the index cards so that they could be stronger and I could build with them. Why don't you think about that for a minute and talk about it with your teacher to see what you could do with these index cards to make them stronger. Okay, so I started kind of coming up with some ideas. I'm just testing a few things before I make my whole plan. So I looked at some ways that I could change this flimsy paper, and by changing the geometry of the paper, I can make it much stronger. So like if I just push on the paper like this, or like this, it bends quite a bit. But if I make it into a tube or a column, now it's quite a bit stronger than it was before. So what I did is I made 4 columns, and I'm going to see if my banana falls down. Okay, so I'll reshoot this a little bit so you can see it better, but here my banana is not falling down. Okay, so a column works pretty well. I can also use a triangle. I took the paper and I made it into a triangle. Maybe not quite as strong, but if I have 2 of the pieces of paper together, I think it will work pretty well. So now I'm gonna put a card on top. It's like kind of like my floor, and I'm gonna try putting my banana on top. Pretty good! Okay, so now I'm gonna show you a close-up of that. Here are the 4 columns. And what I did is that then I just took an index card and I put it on top. So it's kind of like the Parthenon, right, in Greece. And now I'm gonna try to put my banana on top. So my banana will be held up by the 4 columns and the floor. So at least it can go up, well, not very far. It can go up 3 inches. Almost 4 inches using the columns. Okay, the other choice was to look at the triangle, looking at a triangle shape. And again, using the index cards as a floor. I'm gonna see how it does with my banana. Okay, again, pretty good. Okay, so now I've tested some materials. I'm going to come up with a couple of designs, a couple of ideas. So my first idea was to use the column idea. And I've got the columns. And I noticed I measured it and it's only 3 inches high. So I'm gonna have to have 4 layers in order to have it reach 12 inches. So I've got 4 columns on each side. So it's gonna be a kind of a long skinny tower with a layer of cards, more columns, layer of cards, more columns, layer of cards. So that's one idea, right there. My other idea is to kind of focused on the triangle idea, and I actually kind of changed it a little bit. I made a bigger triangle and I doubled it so that it would be stronger. And then I would have layers. Then I was realizing that this is gonna take a lot of cards. I only have 50, and just the first floor is 36 cards. So if I had unlimited cards, that might be a good way to go. But right now, I only have 50 cards. So I'm going to switch back to the column idea, and I'm going to build my tower out of columns and see if I can get a tower that's 12 inches high and will hold an apple or a banana or a pear, something like that. All right? You guys need to do your own idea. So I'm coming up with some your ideas, your plan. Draw it in your notebook, and then choose one and build it. Okay? Great. Okay, I just wanted to show you my partial building. So I've got the first layer, I've got 4 columns on each side and some cards. I've got the next layer, 4 columns and some cards, and I'm gonna keep building. Okay, I've got the 3rd floor. So this is 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches. I need 3 more inches. Okay, I have had success. I have 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors, 4 floors, for a total of 12 inches. And that was the requirement, that I had to build a tower that would hold a banana or some other piece of fruit, and I had to make it out of index cards, and it had to be at least 12 inches tall. Okay, I succeeded. But it's okay if I didn't, right? That's one of the things about engineering, is that sometimes when you're doing something and it doesn't work the first time, you'll learn a lot about what didn't work and how you can make it better. So here was my problem. I needed a stand for the fruit. The constraints were that I could only use 50 cards. I could only use a small amount of tape. It had to be a minimum of 12 inches, so I could go higher if I wanted, and it must hold the fruit on top. I had some ideas. I had 2 ideas, and then I wrote a little bit about the build. How did the build go? And I said I had to be very careful about the placement of the columns. If I put the columns out too far, it tipped over. And how would I improve it? Well, I could put an extra layer of cards in between the layers to make the floors a little stronger. Another idea, in order to make it more stable, is to maybe make it a little wider. So have 3 rows of columns instead of just 2. Having a wider base makes it more stable. So this was our engineering lesson for today. I love it. I love learning about engineering. I love learning and doing some building. I think it's a fun way to get started for this school year. We're going to continue working in our science notebook, and next week we're going to get some more things out of the bag. All right, I'll see you next week, Cougars. I would really love to see a picture of your final build. Please take a picture of how your build went and either send it to your teacher, or maybe your teacher will give you my email. I'd love to see your final build project, okay? All right, see you later, guys.